other workshop you have is on reviews, and the importance of reviews is just increased exponentially. It's got the social proof component. You rank for the superlatives in the map pack. It's component of LSA, local service ads, of the Google Maps rankings, all these components. And you have this workshop called Review Reset. So tell me a little bit about that workshop, and maybe same thing. I'll give you the open mic. Maybe a tactic there that you could share.
Sure. And this is another area that I'm super passionate about, and I feel like it's often undervalued. Sometimes it may just because there's not advertising dollars involved. So, I think there's a lot of personal injury attorneys that know that they need reviews and they want them. But again, they have to give it more thought and intention behind the approach. And I want to share, because I've worked with many different law firms, I want to share these numbers to give some perspective. You should, at minimum, be able to have 50% of all of your clients give a review successfully. And I've seen many firms go as high as 80%. So you can run some quick math. If you're signing up 100 cases a month, you should know that you should be getting at least 50 reviews successfully. Now, most firms aren't doing that, and the main reason is because of how they ask. Okay. So number one, there's I would say a myth about reviews that you need to wait until the settlement. It's like, oh, it's the end of the case and it's 3 years later, 2 years later. That's a waste of time. Okay. You're working harder than you have to. You're driving into your own traffic. You want to find people in the peak of their experience, which is actually typically in the first couple of months, right? Where you're starting to work on their case, you're communicating, they feel like you're taking care of them. You don't need to overthink it. People give reviews today after going to a restaurant for 10 minutes. So you find a way to engineer a positive comment. Oh, hey, Chris, just finishing up here. Do you feel like I've taken good care of you? If I answered all your questions, you get a little positive comment, and that transitions into the ask. But I want to share one of, I would say, the biggest secrets to going from asking someone to actually having a successful review on Google. And because I think a lot of people listening to this go, yeah, we're asking people, but they're not leaving the review. And that's because of the moving parade of life. You ask them, they're somewhat satisfied. They say yes, and then they go, check 17 emails and pick up their son or daughter, and they've forgotten about you, right? This isn't a priority. So the key is getting a verbal commitment on when the review is going to happen. So if I was on the phone with you, Chris, and you already said, yeah, I could give you a review, Chad. I say, oh, thanks, Chris. That means a lot. And I know, Daryl Isaacs is really going to appreciate it as well. And he's going to be looking for that later tonight. Hey, by the way, is there any chance you could do that when we get off the phone? Or is it possible that you could do this by the end of the day?
Two micro commitments and a time constraint. I like that.
There you go, right? And what happens is once they give you that verbal commitment, people like to be consistent with what they say and what they authorize, right? So that verbal commitment drastically increases the chance that they're actually going to do it that day. And if it doesn't happen that day, the chance of it happening goes down significantly. So getting that verbal commitment on when it's going to happen will drastically increase those reviews. And if you're not getting a lot of reviews, a lot of times it's just because people aren't asking enough as well.
The thing I love about the micro commitment is basically you're getting permission to follow up too. Yes. So yeah. then you can go into that cadence, the text, the call, the email, and they have already given you permission to do that, which I love every bit of that.
There's actually, to your point about the permission of follow-up, if someone does verbally commit and say, oh yeah, I could do that when we get off the phone, no problem, right? Guess what you do 10 minutes later? A text message that's assumptive. Thanks again for the review. Mm-hmm. And then one of two things is happening. Either one, they haven't done it yet, and that's a professional reminder, or two, they've already done it and you just said thank you again.
That's fantastic. What about just, okay, so some individuals, like let's talk about the solo practitioner, the early firm, and it's like, what's the balance here between an individual that has a case versus maybe an individual that's experienced the firm, or you know, I, I haven't, there's this murky type of language on like what is a client, right? It's, so do you see, components of like grassroots campaigns and the QR codes and things like that, or is it mostly, is your workshop specifically with the individual that's had a case or not had a case? You know, who's this for, and how do you just get more volume of opportunities?
Yeah, another good question, because especially for smaller firms and when it comes to the value of reviews, again, it comes down to that leverage and how do we create more volume. So who should be asking are the people with what's called the primary relationship. And it may not be the attorney, it might be a case manager, paralegal. So when I do workshops, it's typically with the case managers, the people that can make a personal ask, because people don't want to give reviews for companies. They don't care about your law firm. They don't care about your marketing budget. If you have someone who has a personal connection that's been helping with a case, they want to do it because of a personal favor, not to help out some law firm. Okay. So that's a lot of leverage there, having the right person ask. But in creating volume, in addition to consistently making it a priority in your culture to ask these people, you can also, one other great thing, and Mike Morris has done an excellent job of this as well, but when you have events, legally, someone doesn't need to be a client to give you a review. And when you do an event, whether it's a backpack giveaway or giving away turkeys or what have you, that's another great opportunity to have a review crew and go ask people for reviews. Now, I know when it comes to the algorithm, if you have people that are talking about something totally unrelated to personal injury, it may not help as much for the algorithm, but you can ask people to mention, if they had a case or some keywords. But overall, the reviews come down to, you want a decent star rating, 4.7, 4.8, 4.9, that kind of sweet spot. And ideally, your goal is to double the number of reviews from your closest competitor. I mean, these decisions happen in a small little space on that map, and it's the glance generation. So they're going to be looking at how many reviews you have and your star rating, and they're not spending 27 minutes reading every review.
Right.
So the volume is critical there.